What may I get for you this evening?
I think
I'll order for us. We will split the absolute perfection, but instead of anxiety, could I get a flawless side of raised expectations, please?
Of course. And how would you like your circumstances?
Micromanaged? Micromanaged. Oh, and please tell the chef that no matter how well he prepares it, I'll still be dissatisfied.
Will do.
Oh, and can we get some 38% shinier silverware?
Yes, sir.
What a close to but not quite perfect evening.
Well, good morning, Forward Point. How are you doing on this daylight savings time morning? Yes, this is kind of the response I expected this morning. I don't know about you, but I still feel like I'm never quite sure my phone is going to make the transition sometime in the middle of the night when it's supposed to happen. So it's always a restless night sleeping, making sure that I do, in fact, get up at the right time so I can get where I need to be. I'm sorry that that icebreaker game turned out to be such a headache for you guys this morning. Normally I go through great lengths to make sure it's going to be something fun and enjoyable, but you guys obviously aren't into sports or just not awake yet. I don't know what the difference was, but at least we ended with a bang. We got Tiger Woods. Thank you, Jackie, for that was you, I think. Oh, was it Tina? Oh, it's Tina. Yeah, thank you, Tina, for redeeming the morning here this morning. We just wanted to make you aware of some things that are going on for Easter. You may or may not know that Easter this year falls on April 1st. All right, that's not an April Fool's joke. It is, in fact, Easter on April 1st. And you might have saw that promo video called Playlist. That is going to be the theme of our Easter series that starts on April 1st, going through the month of April. And what we wanted to do is kind of put it in the forefront of your mind to let you know what was coming so that you might be able to start to pray and think about who do you know in your circles of influence that you could invite and bring with you to our Easter gathering. It's going to be a very kind of secular-friendly series. We're going to be using each week looking at different songs that people hear on the radio and glean from them some truths that God has to say for us. And if there's one time that people are likely to go to church, it's what we call Eastmas, right? It's either Easter or Christmas, or kind of the 2 days that people who don't normally find themselves going to church would be willing to go to. So if you would join us in just kind of praying and thinking about who you know that you are in relationship with, that you may want to invite to join you for Playlist on April 1st. We'll have some invite cards and different things like that this week, so for you next week that you can use in that endeavor to invite, but we wanted to make you aware early so you can start praying about and seeing who is in your sphere of influence that you can join with us. This morning we're going to continue on in our I Choose series, and I was kind of thinking, when I was a young college student, graduated from Elam Bible Institute, I was working part-time as a youth pastor and part-time at the Best Buy at the local store there, and I started to feel kind of this angst in me that I wanted to be in full-time ministry, right? That's kind of the point of going to Bible school, is at some point you hope to be working at a church full-time, and here I was working part-time at a church and part-time in the secular world at this electronics shop, kind of not too different than what I have going on now. But at that time, I just had these big eyes of wanting to be in full-time ministry. So I talked to some people that I was in community with, and one of the biggest influence of my life, his name is Mark Scorzone. He was the youth pastor I worked under, and he started to kind of confirm this, calling in my life and starting to pursue this opportunity. And out of the blue, this opportunity came from this church that was down in Florida. Now, I know immediately anybody living in upstate New York, hears about an opportunity in Florida. Immediately, obviously, God is calling us to Florida, right? This is the place that we should be going. But it was kind of cool circumstances. Mark actually knew the church, had actually worked there when he was a young youth pastor, and he knew the senior pastor there and kind of was able to connect us and started, this big, huge job interview, and got to fly down to Florida and stay in this beach house as part of the interview process. If that alone wasn't worth the experience, then nothing else would have been. But going through this process, and I started to have these kind of questions in my spirit as to, God, is this where you want me to be? Right? Is this what you're calling me to, or is just kind of my own selfish desires to live in a place where the sun is shining 360 days out of the year, right? You can go around in Christmas and play basketball outside because it's still nice weather, right? Is this where you want me to be, or is it just my desire? Because I don't want to move all the way across the country unless this is something you're calling me to versus just my angst on the inside to jump at the first opportunity that comes along. And I remember having these very specific questions and doubts in my mind, and I was kind of going through this book that I was reading, and it was like to a T, just the answers to these specific questions that I had started to come out of this book that I was reading. And I felt over and over confirmed in my spirit, like, yes, this is what God was calling me to do, to go down to Florida and be part of this congregation and to be a youth pastor. And let me tell you, the life of a youth pastor or a pastor in general can be pretty crazy, right? You got to work with people, right? We always say how ministry would be great if it wasn't for the people. That's kind of par for the course because sometimes you get some crazy people, right? But you kind of get to make your own schedules. You get to kind of do, whatever you want to do, and no one's really there to make sure or mandate that you do certain things. You just kind of have to accomplish certain goals and expectations, but you get to write your own ticket for the most part, and you get a budget. And part of that budget lets you spend money to go take kids out for lunch and, all these different opportunities that I would have probably do anyways with my own money, but now they're giving me money to be able to do these things with students. And it's an awesome opportunity. It's probably the greatest calling, I think, in the world. But fast forward a little bit, Chaz and I are engaged, and we experience some tragedy, and we decide to, in a kind of rush, move up north to New York. And I found myself, jobless and needing to obviously start to make money to provide, and kind of bounce around in all these little things from little job opportunities that arise. But then the opportunity comes to start working at Apple. And in the back of my mind, I never thought about Apple as being a career. I always kind of thought, just waiting for the next ministry opportunity to come. But all of a sudden, as I started to just fall in love with this company and these products, and they pay really well, like, hey, this could be the key to success for the rest of my life, to have it made. And I start working my way up and accomplishing all these cool statistics and goals. And, over the course of 1 year, I had sold and sales more than $1 million worth of Apple computer products, which means I sold a computer that year. And, got to do all sorts of just awesome experiences through Apple and go to different places. But something happens kind of when you are doing the same thing for a while. At least for me, I kind of get this itch, like I need a change, right? Like something, I kind of get bored of this. I've reached all the top of the hill here, and I kind of want something different. I want to do something else. I need a change. I need things to shake up a little bit because it's getting boring and old. So kind of on my own, I remember having lunch with my wife, Chazlet, at the food court there at the mall, and we were sitting by the Arby's restaurant. And I just kind of out of the blue started, talking to her, and I said, what, I feel like God is calling us back into ministry, like the time has come. Now, I said that in this way where maybe I sounded like I got some kind of vision from God or a dream, or, there was clouds in the sky that pointed to youth ministry or something. But the reality was all I was feeling was kind of this angst, this boredom, this need for change. And I expressed that to my wife as this great calling back to ministry. So she said, well, if that's what God is calling us to do, then I'm on board. I'm with you. I'll definitely do whatever God is calling us to do as a family. And over the course of the next couple months, I remember kind of aligning and controlling all these different pieces to be able to get myself back into a ministry position, right? Being a young guy, obviously Apple looks great on any kind of resume. But what I would do is I would buy the domain name for the church, and, it'd be the Doyle family wants to work at, whatever the church, and I would build this whole website that would be my resume, right? And I would send it off to whatever church, and it was the coolest thing. I always got called in for interviews and basically could choose to go anywhere I wanted because we were kind of this cool, hip, family, and this guy who knows how to do all this stuff with technology, and he's like a wizard of the 21st century, right? And all I remember looking back now is how I just kind of was on this drive to get back into ministry versus really spending any time of my own being called or seeking God's heart as to whether or not this was what we were supposed to do. Right? Just kind of striving and driving for my own wants as a result of this itch for change and something new. And so we moved to Indiana. I accepted a position there as a high school pastor. I mean, when you're in the youth ministry world, you know, being a youth minister, youth pastor is pretty cool. But when you can be a high school youth pastor, that's like the creme de la creme, right? Because it means you're on a youth ministry staff, so it must be a big church. And I get to just work with, I must be more mature because I'm working with high school students, not the crazy junior high students, you know. I've arrived. I made it. And here we are, you know, moving across the country again, with only this time as a family in Indiana. And just a few short later, we're back here in New York. And I look back and I realize that I spent so much of my time and my energy kind of controlling different pieces to get them where I wanted them to be so I could get back to where I wanted to go. I hadn't really spent much time asking God the same kind of questions and searching that I went through during the process to Florida really was non-existent in this experience of going into Indiana. And I realized, man, by nature, I'm not normally a controlling person, but when it comes to something that I really want or, you know, kind of try to connive, it's easy to use when I feel like God's calling us back into ministry, and I started controlling these pieces. We're in a series about choices. All of our lives can be summed up as the sum of the choices that we make, right? We are today the sum of all the choices that we've made up to this point. The reality is today, all the choices that you make today are going to define who it is that you become tomorrow and the things that you do and the people that you become. Last week, Steve was able to talk about this idea of, you know, we want to choose purpose over popularity, right? God has a purpose for us, a design for us, and we want to choose to pursue that purpose versus just the popularity of what the people around us are doing or expecting of us. Next week, we're going to be talking about this idea of choosing discipline over regret, right? In life, there's all sorts of things that we want to accomplish, we want to do, but something happens, either some kind of new show gets released on Netflix and we binge watch, right? Or all these other things that take up our time, and at the end of our lives, we're going to look back and see all these opportunities of regret. We're like, man, I wish I had done this instead or accomplished this. And we want to be a people who choose discipline over regret. How many of you guys would say that there is some area in your life that you know by default you tried to control without even thinking about it? A show of hands. How many people say, yeah, I got this area, maybe a couple of areas, right? And if you're sitting next to somebody there and you're wanting to, you know, put up the hand of the person next to you, then this is probably a message for you, all right? You are the prime person for, I hope you're taking notes. If you would pull out your cell phones, I want to do a quick little poll here so everyone can kind of see. If you want to follow along in the YouVersion app, I would encourage you to do so. But if you go to your messages, we're going to take a quick little poll here, and hopefully it works here. So everybody can see kind of how this is a normal thing. We want to do is, how often do you find yourself being controlling, all right, in your typical day-to-day life? So if you text one of these codes to the number 37607, I know we're getting a little crazy here asking you guys couldn't handle sports this morning. Hopefully you can handle your messages app on your smartphone. Or some of you may not even have a smartphone, which I apologize. We'll pray for you afterwards. But the options are, I didn't know there was another way, right? You're controlling 24/7. That's just by default maybe who you are. Option 2, only when it's absolutely necessary do you find yourself controlling. Or the last option is, I don't have control over anything. Maybe you are married like me and don't have control over anything. So, already we got some middle of the road. Some honest people here. Spent a couple minutes just kind of getting a glimpse of the honesty here for people. Give everybody a chance to see my dad kind of pointing and clicking at his phone there. Slowest fingers in the West. All right, so right now we're looking at about half of you guys are taking the easy road right down the middle. And then amazingly, a third of you guys are pretty honest and say you didn't know there was another way. Now, here's what I'd like you to do. The same poll question. I want you to look at the person that you came with and now answer this for them. All right, how controlling are they? You know, I didn't know there was another way, or only when it's necessary. And maybe it's a lot easier to judge other people than ourselves. So answer this for the person sitting next to you if you're in a relationship with them at all. If you know. Well, you guys are a lot nicer than I expected. Not much is changing here. So about half of you still are down the middle of the road there, just kind of controlling when absolutely necessary. Well done, all right. Give it another minute here. All right, so it's about the same. I expected everyone to judge everyone next to them a lot harsher than that, but you guys are a lot kinder. I guess it's a good thing. Maybe you don't need to be here at church today. Is that what it is? Probably because you're in church. You're being especially nice to the people next to you. Maybe we should take this poll on Facebook later this week. So, obviously, all of us wrestle with wanting to control in some area or areas of our life, right? Maybe at work it comes out by this attitude of, man, do it my way, in my time, and if you don't do it right, then I'm just going to come in and do it myself, right? Some of you maybe work for that kind of person, or maybe you are that kind of person. You know, I don't know. No pointing fingers. Or maybe at home, everything has a place, and it's got to be in that place, and it has to be done your way or my way. Or the highway, don't touch that, leave it there, it's got to be perfect. I asked Chazlet what came to mind when thinking about me and being in control of things, and I expected her to have to think about it forever and get back to me in a couple days, but what do you know, right on the spot, she responds and tells me about finances, right? The finances for us is kind of where I control in our family. I don't let her spend any money unless she fills out this kind of bank application. Maybe it's your kids, right? They better act a certain way, and if they don't, then I'm going to ground you until your clothes go out of style. Or maybe it's your spouse, right? If you do something I don't like, then I will withdraw something that I know you like just to get at you. Or maybe I'll do something to kind of control and get what I want, out of you. For some reason, just with Chazlet, when she is driving, I'm kind of always in the state of wanting to control her driving, right? It's like she could be taking a turn, and I feel like she's taking it too close, and I make like these gaspy noises or like these, scared noises, and she's always like, what? She feels like we're about to have an accident, and I'm just like worried about getting too close to the curb, and it's like I want to reach over and take the steering wheel, and I don't know if anyone else suffers from that disease as well. But what we want to do today is address this big issue that's kind of easy to make fun of and have some fun with. But the reality is, whenever we are trying to control something that's not ours to control, what it is a reflection of a really big spiritual problem in our lives. Because what we're trying to do in this one area or multiple areas of our life is to be like God. I want to control because I know I know what's best, and we're trying to be like God. What I want to do is to look at one of the most often misquoted, most popular verses in the Bible, but it's also one of the most difficult ones to live. And even if you've heard it 100 times, what I want you to do is try to hear it this morning as if you were hearing it for the first time. Right, and in your heart, maybe you would ask God, would you help me truly to not just have this as be a bumper sticker in my life, but truly live out these powerful words and truths. So we're going to be looking at Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6, and this is what the author says. He says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Right? Trust in the Lord. It's talking about this idea of surrender. It's not you in control. You don't be the one to make the decisions. Trust in the Lord with just 25% of your heart. Is that what it says? No, trust in the Lord with all of your heart. You don't get to kind of hide something on the side and say, God, you get to handle all this stuff that I don't really care about, but when it comes to my kids, I'll take it from here. Right? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. And lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways, submit to him. Not just half your ways, but in all your ways. And he will make your paths straight. Right? The question is, how much are we trusting God and how much are we playing God? He will make your path straight. And when we do that, we don't make our path straight ourselves. Right? We can't do that. Who doesn't? God. God will make our path straight. So you trust God from the bottom of your heart. This is the verse translated through the Message translation, and I really liked it, so I wanted to read it to you. It says this, the same verse is translated a little bit different. It says, trust God from the bottom of your heart. Don't try to figure out everything on your own. Listen for God's voice in everything you do. Everywhere you go, he's the one who will keep you on track. Don't assume that you know it all. Run to God. Here's the problem. Many of us will probably see this in our own life, and I know I see it in mine. The more we try to control things, right, the more we start to kind of get this fear that we're losing control, right? And as we feel like we're losing control in this one area of life, what happens? Then this kind of fear, we need to start controlling more. And then the more we're controlling, the more we're going to have this fear of losing control. And it's this vicious cycle that can dominate our lives in this area or areas. And the more the cycle goes on, the more fear begins to edge out God in our lives. And what I'd like to do is to show you an example from the Old Testament of control gone really, really bad. Really, really bad. And the problem is when we try to take control and are not surrendered to God, we rarely ever get it right. The story involves Abram and Sarai. Later, God changes their names to Abraham and Sarah. And if there was anyone who battled with control, it was these two. One time when they're traveling for the safety of his family, they were in Egypt, and the leader of Egypt thought that his wife was smoking hot, and he's like, "Oh, she's not my wife. She's actually just my sister," right? And Abram tries to control the situation so that everyone stays safe, and probably more so that he himself just stays safe. And he winds up causing this big mess as, the leader takes Sarai as his own wife, and, all the God's judgment comes down, and the guy's like, "Why did you lie to me?" And he sends them away. So they've been, waiting in their lives later on as they're old people for this promise that God gave them a long time ago, early on in their lives, that they would be the father of many nations. Right? That God had promised them that they would be the start of this great people. And they're getting older, right? The clock is ticking, and they're understanding that their bodies are getting to a place where it just can't do some of the things that would need to happen for this promise to come true. So what do? Sarai starts to kind of connive in her own thinking how she can make this happen, right? And she does what many of us do when the timing didn't line up with her timing. She decided to take control and bring about the desired outcome her way. And this is a perfect example of control gone bad. Genesis chapter 16, starting in verse 1, it says, "Now Sarai, Abraham's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abram, 'The Lord has kept me from having children. Go sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her.' Abram agreed. Right? This is probably a tough decision on his part. All right, if you really want me to. Man has got to do what man has got to do. All right? For the sake of the call." So after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with Hagar, and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Right, God made a promise, and God's timing was not consistent with their timing, so they took control, and control went bad. And if you don't know what happened next, let me kind of explain it to you. Hagar got pregnant, and she gave birth to a son named Ishmael. And then later on, God's promises came true, just like he said. And Sarai, at the age of 90, conceived and gave birth to a son named Isaac. And when you look at the lineage of Ishmael and Isaac, what you have here is out of Ishmael, we have the Palestinians, right? And Muhammad kind of comes out of this lineage. And over here you have Isaac, and out of Isaac and his lineage, you have the Jewish people, and Jesus would come out of this lineage. And here we are centuries later, and still there's this conflict between these nations as a result of this control gone bad. All right, I want to take control. It's not happening my way, in my timing, so therefore I'm going to do what it takes to bring it about. I'm going to line the pieces in just the right way so I can get to where I'm supposed to be. And here may be one of the biggest spiritual principles ever. If you're taking notes, write this down. Don't ever forget. Do not ever sleep with a woman named Hagar, okay? Just don't do it. Chances are, right, you probably never find yourself in that kind of a situation, but you're going to be tempted with something, right? And I don't know what it is or who it is, but the temptation will be there to take control when something doesn't go your way. Maybe you're a single Christian girl and you want a single Christian guy, but since you can't find a single Christian guy, you're going to settle for just a single guy. Right? I know I'm not supposed to. I know we're not supposed to be, unequally yoked, but I can change him. Right? God can use me, and I can change him, and he can be different. Or maybe it's a giving issue, right? Maybe you could be struggling to put God first in your time and resources. And right now that doesn't maybe line up with your current circumstances, with what you have. So you say, I'm just going to take control. I'm going to do it my way. And I know it's none of the parents in here, but for the parents out there and probably other churches or maybe listening online, maybe you're a helicopter parent, right? You know what helicopter parents are, kind of always hovering over their kids, right? Making sure that everything's under control and at every turn that they're protected and everything's going to be okay, right? Oh, man, did someone eat gluten around you? No, it's called the disease control center, right? Or you want to go out and get the mail, okay, just make sure you put your helmet and pads on, all right? It's a dangerous journey from the front door to the mailbox there. But for a second, if you would, just take a moment and think about what is that one thing that you are trying to control in your life. Just take a minute just to self-reflect and think about what is it in my life? What is that one thing that you are trying to control? And maybe write it down on a piece of paper if you're taking notes, or put it in your phone in the notes section. Right, for me, what are those things that I always am trying to think about how I'm going to control are my kids. Right now I have 3 girls, and at some point I got to believe they're going to start liking boys, unless it's Augustine, and she's been liking boys for basically since she came out of the womb, right? At the movie night on Monday night, Brittany sent me this video of Augustine dancing with Josh up at the front there to one of the slow songs and Trolls, right? Almost threw my phone against the wall on my way to break Josh's feet. Right, but at some point they're going to get older, and I'm going to have to build my tower to make sure they never leave or get exposed to any other hormone-raged boys. Maybe it's your kids, maybe it's your grown kids. Maybe your grown kids as kids. I don't know. Maybe it's your finances, your job, your future, your spouse. There's all sorts of areas that could be for you where it is that you're trying to control. And what we're going to do is to ask ourselves is this really mine to control? Or is this something that I'm supposed to trust the Lord with all of my heart and lean not on my own understanding in all my ways, especially this one, acknowledge him so that he can make my path straight. I'm going to choose surrender over control. So what I'd like to do is, as we wrap up, is just give you 3 big questions that will help you to know, right, is this something that you should choose surrender over control with? You ready? Here we go. Question number 1. Is it worth my concern? In other words, there are many things that other people, are going to get upset about and all flustered about, but is it worth your concern? Setting up systems here at Forward Point, we try to get different, things. We have a welcome team and a hospitality team and a greeting team, and we got the video team that streams these things to the Facebook and all these other teams, going on. And it'd be really easy for me to come in like gangbusters and be like, man, I don't want it done this way, or this should be done this way, or right. And it can be very demoralizing for the people involved in those teams. Right? Sometimes I have to kind of let go of some of the little small details of the way that I would want things so that people can step into their purpose and their creativity. Because here's the reality, right? Here's a truth you may want to tweet. You can have control or you can have growth, but you can't have both. All right, you can't be in control and making sure everything happens your way or the highway and expect things to grow. We have to be able to empower people to be able to make decisions and to be okay with, maybe some of them not being the way that I would want them to be or the way that I would want them to look. Because you can't have both. The same is true in a relationship. When you think about your relationships, you can have control or you can have intimacy, but you can't have both. Right? We get so wigged out by things that are outside of our control, and we have to ask ourselves, is this worth my concern? Is this something that I should be taking up? 5 years from now, is this something that's really going to matter or make a difference? Is it going to change anything? I talked about in the last series how one of the things that drive me crazy is when I get out of the shower, sometimes the towel's not there because Chaz took it and she never put it back. And I can tell you, I know I go into our room and it's always going to be that same spot on her bed. She leaves it right there. And I get frustrated and I get angry. I'm just like, woman, can't you put the towel back when you're done using it? Because now I have to dry off with my, old dirty clothes, or, we have the heat vent underneath the sink. I'm rolling around trying to get the heat, over the winter, dry me off. And somehow Chazlet has discovered. But the reality is, if something happened, or God forbid, if something had happened to Chazlet and she weren't here, let me tell you, one of the first things that I would miss is as I'm getting out of the shower, the towel not being there, and the opportunity to be angry and frustrated with my wife. Right? It's those things that frustrate us. 5 years down the road, the reality is how I dried off doesn't matter. What matters is the relationship and the love that I'm going to have with my wife. Somehow Chazlet has discovered the same principle when it comes already when, her car is full of every type of conceivable little person trash, right? Cheerios and juicy cups in her van, and my car is very spick and span and clean, and I can't stand, anything being left in my car. I just don't let her drive my car, right? So that doesn't happen. But the reality is, whether intentional or not, she drives like 5 years from now. It's in the end, it's not going to matter. And I've talked about Chazlet always in different ways, but the reality is, again, these things that drive me insane, the things that I would get frustrated about in 5 years from now are not going to matter. And the reality is, if she weren't here, there would be things that I would actually miss and want to have happen to me again. Those things that frustrate us, that make us angry, the things that we would miss. Now, that's not a license to kill, all right? It doesn't mean that we just go about trying to frustrate or do whatever to the people close to us because in 5 years it's not going to matter, right? No, that's not what we're saying. But is it worth my concern? In 5 years, is it going to matter? Is it really worth getting upset over? Ask yourself that, right? Because some of us, we get upset over things that really don't matter that much. And the second question that we're going to ask in this kind of process is, then is it mine to control? Is it something that I should do something about? Sometimes the answer is yes. There's a big difference between surrendering control, though, and relinquishing responsibility. Right? It'd be real easy for us to say, well, I guess I don't really have to worry about that and just relinquish responsibility. When that's not what we're talking about, right? There's a difference between surrender, control, and relinquishing responsibility, right? If you're struggling financially and, I guess just going to have to let God do whatever he wants to do. I'm going to just surrender now and not, sit on the couch and eat potato chips all day. And magically maybe money will show up in the mailbox. No, that's relinquishing control. That's not what God is calling us to do. He gave you skills. He gave you 2 hands, 2 feet to go out and to do whatever you have to do for your finances. Work, right? Don't spend more than you make. Get a second job if you have to. If your marriage is in trouble, what can you do? Right? Maybe you have to adjust your heart. You examine yourself. You suggest maybe, hey, let's go see a counselor. Maybe we need to get into a life group so we're constantly in community with people, doing life with people who are going to ask us the tough questions. If you're a single dude, right, and you don't want to be a single dude anymore, you want to get married, right, what do? Well, you stop playing Pokemon Go, all right? Put your phone down. Move out of your mom's basement, okay? Take a shower. Put on some deodorant, all right? You do what you can do. Is it mine to control? If it is, then you do something about it. If it's not, then we're going to ask ourselves the third question, right? Is it worth my concern? Is it mine to control? And then, is it for God alone? Is this one of those areas that I'm trying desperately to control, but it's not mine to control? This one is for me, surrender to God alone. Listen to the words of the Apostle Paul as he is chained to prison guards. And again, if you've heard this before, try to just, again, hear it today for the first time and as if it was directly God's heart just speaking to you in your situation. He says this, he says, do not be anxious about anything. But in every situation, not just a quarter of them or the ones that are easy for you to let go, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. What does he say? By prayer and petition. When I look back at the difference between moving to Florida and moving to Indiana, this was the biggest thing that was missing in my life. Again, I was itching, wanted to do something different. And again, out of nowhere, if I feel like God's calling us to ministry, it's not something I had prayed about. It's not something we had prayed about together as a couple. And what happens is we insult God by resolving ourselves to prayer. Well, I guess there's nothing doing now but to pray, right? Well, I guess all we can do is pray about it now. Because the reality is prayer is never a last resort, but it's a first line of offense. All right, Scripture says that we can go boldly before the throne of God. We have access directly to God. He hears our prayers. He's the God who says all things are possible. You can pray. And it should always be our first line of offense. I take him to God. I take her to God. I take them to God. I take my job to God. I take the situation to God. Whatever it is, I take it to God first. In every situation, by prayer and petition, I present my requests to God. And he continues, he says, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. When there's something that we can't control, we say, God, this one is yours. I present this one to you, and I trust it to you. And I'm not going to lean on my own understanding and how I think things should go or the way that I think things should be done. I'm praying that you would do something about this. And God gives you a supernatural peace. Right? It goes way beyond your ability to understand. Yeah, I know, I can tell. I'm just going to keep on talking in it like it's really working. And people will wonder, right, how are you doing so good? They know what's going on in your life and what's happening. They're going to wonder, how are you doing so good? And I don't even know. Right? I should be bad, but I'm not. Because there is this peace of God which transcends all understanding. And it will guard your heart and minds. You're going to be able to learn new skills with all the control time that you're giving up. And now you can learn how to do origami or something, right? So you speak a new language as you release all of this control time. You look at what you're dealing with and you ask yourself, is this for God alone? You're married and your spouse is making bad decisions. You ask yourself, can I change my spouse? And if you don't know the answer to that question, let me just say no, okay? From experience, I will tell you, no, you cannot. Some of you think you can, but you can't. You may even be able to reform their behavior for a little bit, right, for a little while, but you can't change your spouse. So what is this? My spouse is for God alone, for him to change their hearts and their minds. Can you physically heal your body or the body of someone close to you dealing with some kind of infirmity? No. Right? They can change their diet and they can go through the medications and the chemo and the different things. But in the end, it's only God who can heal. So God, I trust you in this. Helicopter parents, can you control your kids' future? No, right? You can threaten them and you can try to, lock them in the tower like I'm going to do, right? And they're going to resent you forever and you can be okay with that because you feel like you're making the right decision for them and their future. But you can give them over to God and trust God. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. All right, is it worth my concern? Is it mine to control? Is it for God alone? Trust in the Lord with all your heart, all of it. And lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Choose surrender over control. Earlier in this conversation, I asked you to think about, and write down what is that area in your life that you're trying to control. And I wonder if you might bring that back. If it's on a piece of paper, you flip back to it, or if it's in your phone. I'm going to ask Steve to come back up and just play on the guitar. And here's what I'd love for us to do. Again, if you still have your phones out in a spirit of just humbleness and openness, one of the greatest things that we can do is minister to each other by just being open and honest about what's going on. And we get the beautiful with technology, the ability to be able to still remain anonymous and do this, but to be able to just express what's going on. So we're going to just do another one of these little quasi polls here. And what I would love for you to do is if you would just text 422-849 and that thing, whatever it is that you wrote down or you put in your phone. And if you would just, in an act of saying, God, I want to surrender this to you. And what I would love to do is, God, is to share it with my family that I do life with, that they'll be able to see and pray. It's going to be anonymous. No one's going to know what it is that you're putting up. But without hesitation, if you would just take whatever that thing that came to mind or whatever was that thing that you wrote down, and you would just share it with us. God, you see each and every one of your creations here in this room that you created and you designed for a purpose. And the more that we desire to control, and the more we allow the fear of losing control to creep in and then to edge you out, the less that we're able to live on purpose. So God, this morning we want to choose surrender over control. God, in all these areas that you are bringing to mind for people, God, as they type in the words and as they express them in their hearts to you, this desire to let go of these areas, God, would you begin to do a work in our hearts and in our lives so we can take another step closer to living in the purpose that you designed us for, that you created us for. God, for every wall that has been built to help protect this area and these things that are trying to control, would you just begin to chip away at that wall so we can be free to live how you designed us, to live on purpose. We want to choose, again, today going forward, purpose over popularity. We want to choose surrender over control so that we can even now begin to redefine who it is that we are going to become and what we're going to be living for. So for the rest of the time this morning, if there's something that you want to write down and send, Steve is just going to continue to play and to sing and close things out as these things come up on the wall, and we just share with each other what God is doing in our heart.
You are my confidence. In Jesus I come, Jesus I come. Oh, what amazing love. We need your cleansing flood. Jesus I come, Jesus I come. In every broken place, you are my righteousness. Jesus I come, Jesus I come. I will rise, stand redeemed, heaven open over me. To your name, eternally, endless glory, I will rise, stand redeemed, heaven open over me. To your name, eternally, endless glory I will bring. Oh. Thank you, God. Father, I just pray that we would learn that when we have control issues in our life, we're actually just hurting ourselves. We're not free. We're bound. And yet sometimes this is all we know. The reality is sometimes we are just, let's face it, sometimes we're a mess. I'm a mess. We're gonna need your help. We're gonna need other people around us that love us and care for us. But it starts inside. It starts with, can we learn to trust? Can we learn to trust a good Father? Can we learn to trust a perfect Savior that wants what's best for us? Are we willing to go down this road knowing that we will never have true intimacy with you? We will never be able to truly trust you if we just need to control everything. So I just ask you by the power of your presence of the Holy Spirit that you would just work on us, God, to have your heart. We would be able to surrender and learn what obedience looks like. I pray for people right here that have the dynamics of their family. It's so difficult, God. I pray for people right now that have issues either at work, delegating. I pray for our minds sometimes that we struggle with having to have everything perfectly planned out, and in the end, we just always leads us to utter failure. We can learn to forgive. We can learn to love. We can learn to have peace, God, in our lives. And joy, God. I thank you for vulnerability and honesty, God, and with your church here, knowing that when we put comments and we share things, it's too bad. We want to help one another, never hurt anyone. I pray that literally your family would come together, just a family of believers, and support and love and reach. We thank you for what you're doing, God. We thank you that we are a work in progress. But man, we can be with you. We can be on this journey that you would just love us and care for us, God. We can make better choices. In Jesus' name. Amen. I pray everyone that goes out just with a blessing and hopefully a little more awake, knowing that you have an extra hour to your day. And but hang out in the cafe, the Commons there, meet somebody, get with a life group. Be thinking a few weeks from now. I think it's we celebrate Easter here, so again, be inviting people to the playlist there. Yeah, we'll finish it off there for Manny. So again, blessings, you guys. Love you guys.